record to the cloud. Look at the little thing pop up. All right, and here we go. So hello everyone, welcome to Brain Club. I am Mel Hauser. I use she, her pronouns. I'm sitting in my office. I'm wearing a pink fluffy fleece shirt and I have short brown hair. And we are here to talk about family relationships and co-regulation this month. And for our first week on this theme, I am pleased to introduce Hannah Bloom, the pediatric occupational therapist and president of our All Brains Belong Board of Directors, who's here to present Attunement and Attachment. There is no one right way to show love.
Hello all, I am Hannah. I am a pediatric occupational therapist and have a long practice of working with families and individuals on regulation, specifically both sensory integration regulation and co-regulation and family systems regulation. And my interest in attunement and attachment comes from that place of finding regulation and finding, dipping in and out of finding that homeostatic place, being able to find some ease in life. And it is all up and downs and dips, ins and outs. So in particular, when we started thinking about attunement and attachment and the diversity of brains that exist in the world, one of the things that I found as a new parent starting out the journey was all of the research and all of the information felt like there was some end goal. And there was this linear progression of how you got to attunement and attachment. And I think when we break apart the research, it's a lot more intricate than that. But that doesn't get communicated to parents often. So we're going to try in an hour to kind of go through. Let me back up. Introductions, ground rules. All forms of participation are okay. Video on, off. There's no expectation of eye contact or face contact or how to be on camera. Walk around, move around, fidget, take a snack break. Do what you need to do to have a regulation space. Everyone is welcome, adults, kids, pets, stuffies, and all communication is okay. Speak, type into the chat box, mix and match. Let us know how we can hear you. So this was the very big outline that kind of came out of my brain thinking about this. We're going to look at attunement, brief introduction to attunement, attachment, the sensory profile, communication partners, what a secure base means, how that plays into attunement and attachment, states of regulation, cues of safety. So again, a short introduction and kind of bring in a piece of the polyvagal theory and look at cues of safety, neuroception, and how to communicate cues of safety, both to our internal systems and then to our communication partners. So this was the story the books are going to tell you when you're looking at attunement and attachment, that it happens, it's blissful, you get there, it's going to be this place, and read these books and learn these things, and then have a child in your arms and this happens. And yes, we will have all of these days. We'll have those moments of picture of a mother and baby snuggling chest to chest with white shirts on, serene smiles and snuggly baby. Picture of a mother and a child on their back, giggling in the ear and smiling. A photo of two individuals walking hand in hand, appear to be an elderly couple. And then a photo of appears to be a mother and a daughter, teenage years, rocking out, and mom having a hard time understanding what's going on with this world. So even within an hour, we have all of these emotions, and we have all of these sensory systems, and we have all of these regulations, and we know that it's going to happen over and over, that cycle. And then in a lifetime, attunement and attachment is a lifelong process. And we'll have these moments, cartoon photos of two caveman caricatures, cave people caricatures with hands over ears, blocking out auditory noise, appears to be. Cartoon character of a parent and a child in a backpack. Child is crying, parent looks sad, confused, has a puzzled eyebrows up frown, and then a picture of a character flipping their lid with fire coming out of their brain and a big huge scream on their face and hands in a fist and things are on fire. These moments are part of attunement and attachment. They're the part that requires us to pay attention to the rupture and repair, and that builds those neural connections. We will have these moments too. So the piece that I feel like kind of pulls most into understanding the secure base, the attachment theory, is this statement, which is, when parents provide a secure base, their children's confidence in the parents' availability and sensitive responsiveness when needed allows the children to explore the environment freely. The secure base phenomenon contains two intertwined components: a secure base from which a child can explore, and a haven of safety to which the child can return in times of distress. In fact, as noted earlier, the central cognitive components of secure attachment are thought to reside in the secure base script, a script according to which, following a distressing event, the child seeks and receives care from an available attachment figure, experiences comfort, and returns to exploration. What this says to me is there's a dance, there's a partnership of a secure base, and when we find that secure base, that is a place from which the exploration happens, and the distress happens, and the joy happens, and then that secure base is the place of return for that nervous system to go explore and come back. It can also be a secure base for our own internal understanding of being able to return to our sense of security. So when as a parent, when I get distressed, or when that stress starts to increase, and I flip my lid, and it's this departure from my secure base, it's also about knowing I can return to my own secure base, and that we do depart from our secure base, and then we return to our own. The practice of that being comfortable and being normal and understood in our own nervous systems is a part of that exploration for the nervous systems who are attached to us, being able to do that, explore, have a big feeling, flip our lid, have really strong emotions about something, and then be able to come back to a secure base within an attachment figure. Mel, do you want to add anything there?
Yes, I think that because of that mythology, like the pictures and the snugging, like this is all what I wanted to do. I wanted to have a baby, like when I knew about the secure base thing, and I like really want to be a secure base. I'm just not, because I flip my lid all day. And so like the shame of like, I want to be the thing. And anytime I say that out loud, everyone's like, me too. I'm like, well, why doesn't everyone just say that, right? Like, we're all flipping our lids all the time, and it doesn't mean we're not like doing the secure base thing. It's about just accept it's normal, it's in everything. We're gonna flip our lids. How do we move to that repair place so that you still have the secure, like it's almost like it's a brain rule that stable base equals don't flip your lid. That's not a thing.
No.
But no one says that. So we're saying, so what's the world rule? The world rule version of that. That's what we're gonna get into today.
Yeah. So the world version of that is that we can be a secure base for our own nervous system as well. So when I flip my lid does not mean that I have absolutely lost any potential for me to regulate, for me to be a secure base. I will flip my lid and I will return to my secure limbic secure base. Won't happen fast every time, but that there is that it's fluid. There's not this static endpoint of I am going to be the best secure base for my child ever. No, that's not. Part of it is just also knowing that, knowing that neuroplasticity is there, and that knowing that neural pathways that are created with resilience are really strong. So when we rupture, and we will rupture our own and our attachment with others, that's the repair, togetherness. So yeah, changing the narrative of a secure base does not mean you never flip your lid. A secure base means that you have access to ins and outs of security. So just to define attunement, it's that space when we can hold, it's a space that we can hold when we're accessible to observe, interpret, respond, and understand another nervous system's communication. Attunement can be fleeting, and those fleeting moments of understanding have impact. It's not a constant state. Again, you don't reach attunement. You come in and out of attunement. You're accessible to being attuned. You feel attunement. And that's the other beautiful thing about when you can have a view of it as a fluid thing. I notice when I feel attuned from my kids or from my students. So if I notice that I'm getting an attunement, observation, and interaction and response from another nervous system, then I notice that I feel heard and I feel connected. Recognizing that, labeling that, it goes both ways. Attunement is not just the responsibility on the shoulder of one individual. There's a flow in that. So part of being able to kind of flow in and out of regulation in parenting in particular is knowing our own sensory responses to parenting. Knowing our general sensory profile helps be able to mitigate and have accommodations available for sensory system responses, limbic system responses to the environment that create noxious stimuli, that create pain for our brains. So knowing your general sensory profile and knowing that it changes with hormones, and hormones change with all sorts of different cycles. They change with birth, they change with that first connection to a child, they change with breastfeeding, with chest feeding, they change with sleep deprivation. Hormones change constantly. It's that roller coaster. So knowing that your sensory profile in general will stay the same, but you will find intensity changes based on your hormonal changes. And that's both sexes, all humans, hormone changes. And know that it'll change drastically with sleep deprivation, knowing that hormone change creates, and physiological change changes your sensory responses to the environment. So knowing the strategies that replenish your sensory base, knowing what it is for you that gives you, that fills that sensory cup of whichever it is, if it's movement, if it's quiet, if it's nourishment, if it's oral motor, whatever replenishes your sensory base so that you have more to dip from once those start to go into a deprived state. And know that there's time and that things will change. Again, there's not this static end. It's going to be ups and downs and changes. And know that your brain has plasticity. That was a huge part for me as a new mom, was I really needed to remind myself that I've got the capacity for change, and I have the capacity to be able to have really hard experiences and return to calm, and then go back into hard experiences. Know that there is that huge neural explosion for the infant and for the child in your life, but your brain's not done changing either. Do you want to add anything, Mel?
Yeah, I would say that the sensory responses business is something that's not talked about enough. When I became a parent 5 years ago, I thought I was neurotypical. I had no idea that I had sensory processing differences. So when I heard this baby make this noise that like the pain that I felt in my brain, like someone was stabbing me in the brain with a screwdriver, but it was like my baby. And because I had that thing where like you're supposed to love the baby and like feel the bond and connection, but like the pain and like the breastfeeding and the violation of autonomy of like what is even happening, my brain was literally looking like that. Like that picture is me, like exploding. And no one told me that was a thing. And turns out now that, as a primary care doctor, focusing on supporting neurodivergent kids and families, that is like all the people's experience, but no one knew. So the shame of like, it doesn't mean you don't love your baby. You can love your baby and that baby explodes your brain.
Yep.
Yes. So like, and it's also complicated because so many of our children, their first language is energy exchange, not words. And so it's very difficult when, as a parent, we have sensory processing experiences that emit energy. Like even if we can get our stuff together to like hit the pause button and not like yell, even if we can get there, maybe we can, maybe we can't, depending on the overall state. But like if we even do that, we're still having the energy and you can't turn it off. Downstairs brain feels the thing. And so naming that can be so powerful. Like it's not a deficiency on my part that I am having this pain response to the sound of my baby. Like that doesn't mean that I'm not attuned and connected. Just name the thing. It is what it is. It's a conflicting access need.
Yeah. And it's a limbic response. And it's like we talked about with what are the things in your environment that are making you flip your lid. It's out of any brain's cortical cognitive thinking, I'm just going to think my way out of this. No, I am in pain. And my brain, my limbic is saying fight, freeze, flee, whatever that response is. So yeah, naming it, knowing it, sensory responses in parenting are prolific. The number of parents, and this was for me, the conflicting access and the constant, I don't like the feeling of skin touching skin. I wear leggings and long sleeve shirts all summer long because I don't want my armpits to touch and I don't want my thighs to touch. And so I'm stressed out. Things aren't working. And the information that I get is have more skin to skin time. Cuddle that baby in right in your chest. And it's like, okay, I can do this, right? It's okay. Wasn't my thing.
It's okay. And there are many brains who have that response.
Yep.
You are not the only one who does not want skin touching skin. You are not the only one who has this experience of painful revulsion when your baby cries.
Right.
You are not the only one who has this like profound brain explosion when you smell the poop. You are still an attuned parent.
Right. You still find attachment and you still have access to attunement. And it doesn't end in infancy. You're not the only one whose, stinky 5-year-old feet in your face make you want to vomit. Like that is not unique to me. And it doesn't mean I don't love those feet. I just put them in the bath sometimes. Right? So there's all these sensory responses to parenting that happen throughout the lifespan. And naming them, being able to, and then finding the access, what it is. So I think the next slide, we're going to look a little bit at, nope, I took it out. Naming the things that you're not alone in experiencing really true limbic fear, flight, autonomic nervous system responses to your environment, and your environment includes another nervous system that you love unconditionally, but your brain still says danger. Then you know what it is. So can there be accommodations in your home, in your own space, in your time? When I'm just so tired that I can't think, I need more water and movement. Knowing those two things, I can sometimes get myself to hydrate and go for a walk. Sometimes. Knowing your own sensory profile can be a huge asset to getting back into those moments of attunement and attachment. So the other piece about learning how to live with the newborn, states of regulation, arousal. And again, this goes through the lifespan. So 2 photos of babies in different regulation states. Baby on the top has wide eyes and intentional gaze, quiet mouth. And the baby on the bottom has a crying face, open mouth, tightly shut eyes, a nose very scrunched up, and forehead wrinkled and red. Everybody's got all of these different regulation states of regulation and arousal. We all go through them. Deep sleep, sound asleep, active light sleep, drowsy state, which is that hypo-alert state, the pre-sleep or the pre-distress, depending on your nervous system, awake alert state, calm focus state, alert with emerging distress or hyper alert state, and then distress and flooded. Knowing that these are a part of our everyday rhythms can be an asset in having an understanding of how much we're going to be able to have access to our own attachment and attunement, and how receptive the other nervous system is going to be to our attachment and attunement. I'm noticing the chat. Sorry.
I'm just quoting you, that's all.
Oh,
I'm also
okay.
live tweeting you.
Gotcha.
I do that now.
Okay. Can I ignore the chat then? You've got that? Okay. Yep. Awesome. So being able to then loop that into where our sensory needs come in as parents, and where our ability to return to our own secure base for ourselves is also important. When I am in hyper alert in that emerging distress state, I know that I need to take care of my regulation to be able to return to my secure base for my own nervous system, to then be a secure base for the nervous systems around me. When I am hypo alert and I start to have a little bit of that dissociative kind of, I'm not here because I can't really actively be here and my brain is foggy and nothing's really making sense. I need different energy accommodations to be able to get into an awake, alert, calm state, to be a secure base for myself, and then therefore a secure base for the nervous systems around me. And we know these are lifespan. I mean, one of the pieces of this month that we're going to talk about is the sandwich generation. Knowing these states of arousal for my parents is super helpful too. Knowing that when I need to have a conversation with my father about something that is pretty important, I need to be able to regulate myself into an alert, calm state, and then I need to be able to regulate him into an alert, calm state before there's any sort of access to cognitive conversation. So one of the pieces that Mel talks a lot about with dopamine-bound brains, and this was that information about a lot of children's first language is energy. This is a way to think about the energy. So Stephen Porges, who's the polyvagal guru, talks about neuroception, and I liked the way this definition kind of gave us information about what the neuroception can mean. So our nervous systems is continuously scanning and sensing to evaluate danger and safety cues. This happens subconsciously, as do our nervous system's responses to the sensed cues. Again, this is not us trying to think our way out of our subconscious response to the cues in our environment or internal cues. So Dr. Stephen Porges emphasizes that potential protection systems are operating beneath conscious control, inducing a range of physiological indicators such as sweating hands, increased heart rate, voice inhibition, emotional numbness, facial stoicism, on and on. Those subconscious responses to our environment, both internal and external, are also parts of what can be read by the nervous systems around us. So when a baby is an energy reader, which most babies are, if our internal response when baby cries is so much pain, then that information can be communicated. The trick is, without the shame, we're not alone in having that pain response. What do we do to accommodate our nervous systems to be able to go to the baby without having that energy be matched? Or if it is, how do we repair? What's the connection? Yeah, go Mel.
So for me, when I am aware, if I can slow down enough in that moment, and next week, Amy LePage is going to walk us through how do you actually tune into your body's responses to things like this and like concrete things to do with that. But let's say I'm even able to do that. I already have my own energy against myself. Shame has its own thing. I'm like, I'm doing it again. I'm doing the lid flipping thing, the thing that I can't control because the sensory experience is happening. Like, any thoughts on like in that moment? Because that is what so many people come in here and talk about.
So yes, that moment is real. That moment happens to all of us. So I think the more that we can internalize the narrative of I'm not alone. I'm not a monster, pretty much is what it's got to be. Like I have to tell myself over and over again, I am not a monster. This is a normal human brain reaction to a sensory overload, to a painful, noxious stimuli. Then the repair comes. So after that belief in yourself, then the repair comes. So then being able to return to connection, return to attachment and attunement of, and so this was also being able to cue safety to the nervous systems around us. The more practice our nervous systems have at returning to safety, the easier that becomes in our brains. The internal dialogue is huge. I mean, and I think the more we say it out loud, name it to tame it, just being able to say again, like, I'm not a monster, I'm having a big feeling. I can come back to this. With practice and time can change. But then it's also the strength of the repair. You're connecting in resilience. You're connecting in returns and in connections that are based on we're all human and we all do these things, and our brains are in that state. Doesn't mean it's constant. That state changes. So being able to communicate cues of safety, even for our own nervous system, is huge. So providing cues of safety for our own nervous system will lead to the safety and connections with our communication partners. Sensory safety cues need to be addressed to create those external cues. And it's a very much an individual process. For me to be able to cue my safety, I actually need to get grounded. So I will sit on the floor. I'm sitting on the floor as close to the ground as I can right now, because it's a little bit nerve-wracking for me to be on a recording with people watching and having the spotlight on me, trying to do word finding under pressure. So I'm sitting in the basement on the floor. Helps my nervous system know that I'm safe because I feel grounded. It's each individual thing. The way that I communicate safety to my kids the most often is to lie down on the floor. I sit down, I get way low, I get myself grounded. That changes the power dynamic, but it also cues my body. Oh yeah, that's right. This is where I'm safe, down here on the ground. So knowing your own cues for safety. And then the vagus nerve activation helps as well for your own regulated state, being able to tap into vagal nerve activation. And again, it's an exploration of your own nervous system and finding out what those tools are that work for you. Humming works well for me. Being able to do the mouth work that we've been working on too, with getting my tongue way up on my hard palate and opening up my ear canals and really getting air through safety, taps into my parasympathetic for me. Relaxing our face, chest, belly, and buttocks can be a great cue of safety. I walk around the school and there are so many of our little kids with their butt cheeks like this. Oh my gosh, like every little muscle is going into my work in my butt cheeks so I can stand in line. It's like if we can be the nervous systems that give them that full like flood of relax, comes across in our face, comes across in our chest, comes across in our belly and in our back body and our bottoms. Getting below eye level with our communication partner so that line of sight is not in power struggle. And also knowing where the visual line of exit for some nervous systems is really important, and not closing that line. Don't move in front of the door that is the exit or the window that is the exit, because that can be the fear of I don't have. It's okay, Matthew. The fear that I don't have exit. You want to say hi? Hi.
Hi.
Hi, nice to see you.
Hello. Mel, do you want to add anything about cues of safety?
Yeah, I think that if sometimes just like making something up, like anything arbitrarily, like you're gonna be like, okay, when I do this is my thing. I do this. I didn't used to do this. I do this now. I do this because it's my pretend pause button. It doesn't even really mean that I'm trying to pause. It's just something that's like, oh yeah, that's that thing where I'm gonna try to be safe now.
Yeah, so creating some sort of tangible cue. Yeah. The other piece that we've talked about, Mel, and that I think fits in here is kind of figuring out how to do this kind of dopamine infusion, like instant, like silliness or, sugar rush, something that kind of switches out of the limbic and gets a little bit more access to regulation, can be completely also a cue of safety. Like,
yeah, this morning in my house, there was like a thing, and as there always is, and I just randomly decided to like, so my child was saying something about like, being evil or something, and I just said like, oh, because I thought you were a moon pie, and she just started cracking up, and it was like a total, just like we got dopamine, and the thing was over. It was really interesting, and then with like a little bit of, then we could really debrief and repair the thing. But not all kids respond to that. Some kids just really can't take, or some humans, not even kids, just like anybody, cannot take auditory input. Like sometimes it's best to just, not have any sounds come out, and anything, whether it's like, bearing witness, humor, like just sound. So the safety ramifications of sensory processing for nervous system. Uh-oh. My voice went.
yeah.
Bummer. Can you not hear me now?
A little bit. I think if you move back.
How about now?
Yep.
Okay, sorry, weird. Oh, that's terrible. Maybe I'll go, anyway, I'll stop talking now and then I'll go to a different place in my office. That's weird. What I was going to say about, oh, we have this thing for accused for safety.
Mel, it's when you lean into the computer. Yeah. I think it might be your mic.
Yeah, I'm keep going. Just keep going.
Okay. Okay. So one of the cues for safety and the dopamine kind of influx that can work with this one is if we start to see a little bit of a smile, then there's the tickle, the giggle that can start to come. And again, it's that I see that window of access of upper. Yeah, you can't do it over. Or if I completely flop on the ground, then all of a sudden it's like, whoa, okay, what just happened? We're changing it up, huh? Yeah. All right, we're gonna. So the you got some stuff to say? No. So communication partners. I'm gonna mute for a second and let Mel talk. Yeah. Okay. Are you back, Mel?
I'll ask Isaac a question in just a minute when my sound's better. But what I can say in the meantime, while I'm trying to get my phone Zoom to work out, is that you know, for getting into communication partners, sometimes it's about really. Oh, maybe I'll just say the thing. If you can hear me now, can you hear me now? Yeah. Okay. We have a card, a visual cue of the symbol of safety, and we have this great book, The Rabbit Listened. And I made a card of the icon of the rabbit listened. And the purpose of the book is to say that, you know, there's this character, he's got a problem, and then all the people are trying to solve his problem and all the things, but the rabbit, he just sits and listens. And anyway, so we have a card with the rabbit listened, and today I actually had the presence of mind to grab the card. I just held it up because it's our symbol, it's our shared cue that this is safety, and the reassurance that I'm not gonna talk.
Yeah, one of the things that was in one of the brain clubs a couple of weeks ago, I'm forgetting Casey's last name.
Ehrlich,
thank you. She said practicing when you may say this correctly, unsolicited bids for communication are demands. So I've been practicing waiting until there's a solicitation of engagement from my child, and I'm not creating unsolicited bids of engagement. My presence is close. My nervous system, I'm in a stable base when I can be. My nervous system is accessible. I've got cues of safety. I'm not talking. And that allows a lot more access of the nervous system for him to process, because when I start to talk, he has to process my verbal information along with my energy information, along with his internal information. So knowing what our communication partners, knowing that co-regulation is that bidirectional or more system in a family, and that our own regulation matters. And again, going back to knowing our sensory profiles, knowing our limits, knowing what feeds our reserves, can be a super big helpful. And this is where it was. So then, yeah, when I'm too tired to think I need more water and movement. And so I give this information to Isaac, and I give this information to him when I'm starting. I was like, I am exhausted. I'm going to drink water and I'm going to do some rolling around on the floor. Helps my brain. And then when I'm super stressed, I don't like skin to skin touch. And so it's also letting my communication partner, my partner know, like, I don't want a hug when I'm super stressed. That skin to skin touch is too stressful for me. And my regulation needs to be a part of that conversation and a part of that. And then naming our triggers and knowing what accommodations that are currently can help us get back to safety, paths back to safety. And then in that communication partner, one of the things that is important to think about and starts with that infancy super early on is noticing the serve and return. And that, again, that silence and that not doing that big, huge, like, draw you out and I want this and I'm gonna just pull you into this, like, really just having a stable base of affect that is accessible, but it's not demanding. You will see serves of communication from your nervous systems around you, and that communication will be served to you in a million different ways. It can be the babble, but it can also be this very energetic shift of just where the dip goes. Do you have your hand up, Cheryl? Yeah.
Thank you. By the way, both of you, this is really wonderful. Would you mind deconstructing what happened with your child in real time relative to what you just said with the serve and return? Like, what was going on inside of you besides, oh my God, I've got people watching? I mean, I would love to hear how that relates in real time.
Absolutely. Awesome. Yeah. And I one of the other pieces with the serve and return that I'm exploring is this technology world of what is the serve and return with Zoom, because it is very much a different limbic response for my kiddo. And I think for me as well, when I see my own face, it's so weird, right? Like, this is not a usual, like, serve and return, because, you know, I'm 5 years old and I see my face and I could, look at, that's fun. So that piece plays into it. And then my personal internal limbic response of, let's not get all the way up here and flip our lids because it's public and recorded and on video. So yeah, you could see my shoulders start to hike. You could see my internal response of saying, like, are we going into an unsafe space? Finding again where I am grounded. I'm on the floor, feeling the cold ground beneath me, looking to Mel to help, knowing that I have a safe communication partner in this forum with me. I ask, I give a lot of my trust to Mel often, knowing that they are there for that, to receive that serve coming from me helps to give me the chance to hear the serve that is coming from my kiddo.
Can I add to that?
Yeah.
So I was watching that and I thought, I would like to try to co-regulate because I have an independent relationship with your child. So, and then in the middle of this, I was like trying to do the thing where I was switching Zooms between technology pieces, which is like the hardest thing my brain ever has to do. And I was like, I can't do the thing and we're being recorded. And the minute I thought to myself, whoa, the thing about being recorded is a brain rule, not a world rule. That in that moment changed everything. So it's like when we are triggered, even though, like, I'm so removed, I'm not in the room, it's not my child, all the things, still that brain rule versus world rule distinction from a co-regulation standpoint, I think makes a huge difference. Like, so who cares if the people judge? Actually, the people will probably love it because it'll remind them of their real lives. It's like that made, all the difference in the world.
Yeah. Yeah. And knowing, okay, so for me, for my brain, knowing that my friend Mel is there and will hold me regardless of the judgment gives me that change of nervous system and secure base and safety. And he wanted to give me information about a chess game that's going on upstairs. So that came in once we were unmuted. He wanted to tell me about the game that was happening upstairs, and he wanted to possibly be in conversation with Mel in that independent friendship, aside from being on recorded, because this is also a form of friendship that's being explored in our household because of COVID. So friends who we would see in live time, we are doing Marco Polo with, we are doing Zoom with. So this form of friendship is also a part of his lexicon right now. So there was this kind of, oh wait, where's Mel? I'm gonna find Mel on the video.
Hannah, this is also a good example of something we talked about at one of our January brain clubs about the difference between foot on the gas and press the brake. So when someone, particularly with a dopamine bound brain, has foot on the gas, meaning I have to do the thing and I have to do it now, it typically, we as the co-regulator, we try to be like, no, I'm presenting to a crowd of people. No, do not do that. Stop, break. But really what was effective was let foot go on the gas until it was done. Okay, great. When the car was done, eventually the foot came off the gas. But if you had done a thing like stop, it probably wouldn't have turned out as peacefully as it did.
No,
because they're two different pedals.
Totally. Yeah. And I have my foot on the gas because I'm trying to do this. Right. So for me too, in my dopamine brown brain, but wait a second, I'm talking about serve and return. Don't actually try to do it. Yeah. Cheryl, did you have any observations or any questions?
Thank you. I think that answered it, especially when you were muted and you evidently got to help him hear his voice. You co-regulated yourself, you attuned to him. What is his underlying need here all of a sudden? And it was the chess and Mel. And I assume somehow that got met. And the fact that you talked about the my shoulders up, tush on the ground. So you went to body sensation. Where am I safe in my body? Where's neutral or pleasant that takes me out of my limbic? So that you could get, I'm running programs with what's called positive intelligence that makes it gets it to its essence of there's intercepting the
Right.
voices in our head, saboteurs. You do something that grounds you, the physical and noticing, and then you have access to your sage brain, and you just modeled it in real time, and especially when you shared it. So thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah, thanks for noticing. It's all over, isn't it? I mean, this is a part of it is also having that observation and exploration eye of seeing it in the world and knowing we're not alone in experiencing these events over and over and over again. And this, sometimes these communication pieces can look like that joyful 5-year-old who's got a butterfly net and, oh, look, I caught this information. Yay, it's beautiful. I got this piece of information. I love it. And sometimes it can be like, I am totally frazzled, have absolutely no idea how I'm going to get that ball over there. Well, that ball's flying at me from there, and that one's coming at me from there, right? All of us, all the time. It's there. And when we're in one does not mean it's going to last forever. When I can't catch all the balls does not mean that all the balls are always going to be flying at me. It's just maybe this moment or hour or month or 2 years. COVID will end or change. We will get there. And then knowing how communication comes, not only from our communication internally to people that we serve our communication to, but how do we notice communication coming in that serve and return? One of my previous jobs in New Mexico was I worked in a juvenile detention center, and I did a lot of Dan Siegel work with flipping your lid and upstairs brain, downstairs brain, and I taught one of a group of guys to just kind of give me this like, it's happening. And I was like, okay, let's go. So this was our symbol that I'm gonna flip my lid. And if they saw me in the hallway and they were about to go, totally understandable limbic system response to any demand. They're high school students in a lockdown facility. They gave me this symbol and they got immediate access to exit and immediate access to sensory regulation. And it was amazing. So that form of communication, and there was very few, like eye contact is super threatening. So it was very much often more of this with the averted eye gaze. And then it was just like, okay, let's go. Silence is communication, shared space, energy, spoken language, on and on and on and on, knowing how communication comes, all of those forms, noticing how communication is being served so we can understand how that communication partner will receive our return. So an energy reader like Mel's and mine, communication is served often in the unspoken body language. And so knowing that that's how communication is served allows us information about how receptive communication can be when it's energy and body language. Really quick, gonna go through a handful of resources that you'll have when you have this, and then absolutely dive deeper into these resources as we process the world of attunement and attachment. Self-reg, facilitated attuned interactions, collaborative problem solving, neurodharma, and circle of security. These are 5 that I have found I return to over and over again, because all 5 of these have they have loops. They have access to flow, where you get into a feeling of connection, attunement, and attachment, and then you fall out of it, and that's part of the loop. And then that bottom of the loop is where you do some problem solving, or you do some reflection, or you do some introspection, and then you fall back up onto that loop, and you're kind of riding this roller coaster of life with. And I dip in and out of all 5 of these as bases of research and bases of scripts for me to use as a parent, as a therapist, as a human, as a friend. Amazing resources. I will happily talk to any of you about all of them any time. So just to give you some visuals of these 2, this is the, on the left is an infogram from Stuart Shanker's Self-Reg. And then on the right is an infogram from the circle of security, being the secure base for the exploration, and then the return of the safe haven to that secure base. The next slide has the collaborative and proactive solutions, which has changed from collaborative problem solving is now collaborative and proactive solutions, which is a three-step plan, a script to be able to walk through for figuring out where those really big hiccups are, and how to have a reflective process with another nervous system about those really hard things. And the empathy step, gathering information about and achieve clear understanding of the concern, the individual's concern. Doesn't have to necessarily be kid concern or perspective of an unsolved problem that you're discussing, and then define the problem, enter that concern of kid that's coming into consideration, and then the invitation for problem solving. We use this a lot in our family, and it has even now been something where Isaac will bring a concern, and that define the problem is him. It's not the adult bringing the concern to the table. It's he wants to talk about more ice cream, please. Okay.
Totally. We've been doing this in my house since probably right before my child's 3rd birthday. It's a game changer. Sounds like a future brain club is in order.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we could definitely easily spend many hours diving into this. I think it's an amazing tool. Even individually, like for myself, like self-empathy, the 3-step for me is huge. And then facilitating attuned interactions. Oh, I'm sorry, that's really fuzzy. This is a piece, and I put too much on our plate, I'm sure. But facilitating attuned interactions is something that I used, that I was trained in and used, and it was something I've returned to recently, thinking about how to use it for myself and how to use it for our family. So it's very similar to the other ones. It's going through self-regulation, having an empathetic inquiry of my own, where I am, what the feelings are, having the collaborative explorations of the problem solving, and then doing the capacity building. And then this piece also does the reflection. So then integrating the reflection of, did that work? Did that feel good? Where did that land in our body? What was the difference? What was the difference in our interactions based on these changes, on this problem solving? I rushed through the end. We'll add those to our future brain clubs. Questions?
Awesome. Thank you so much, Hannah. So yeah, so if anybody's got questions, either chime out loud or type them in the chat and we can read them out loud for you. To give people time for typing, I'll also say that next week for our next phase of our relationships and co-regulation, we're going to do next week is brain rules and world rules. We've been alluding to this like littered throughout January and today, but we're going to do a deep dive into brain rules and world rules. And then the week after, Amy LePage will be here talking about bodily responses to stress and building that awareness in, and we'll get some experiential practice. And then last week of February, and Hannah, you mentioned this, Emil Parmalee will be here talking about the sandwich generation challenges of caring for both children and older parents and some strategies for navigating those changing roles. And we'll send out the recording from today later tonight.
Hold on, Mel, Cheryl raised a hand here.
Good.
I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit more about shame, processing through and out of shame, whether it be for ourselves, about us as parents, and how we cultivate lack of shame in our children.
Can I comment on the shame in children thing? So I have found, so when I think about shame, I love Brene Brown's work on shame, and I think about, that her 4-step process of like first recognizing shame, telling someone about it, because almost always they say me too, and then reflecting on, like, what was it about this situation that made me feel shame, and then fourthly, like when you're really regulated, being able to zoom out and think about the societal structures that led to that, that internal thought that drove the shame. So a great book on that is I Thought It Was Just Me, But It Isn't, by Brene Brown, which was a game changer for me as a parent. And so I teach parents that explicitly, like patient parents, like all the time, because people don't know. You're in your own chaos and you think you're the only one. Not only is there this significant departure between your reality and what your expectations had been, but you think you're the only one doing it because on social media everybody's all like lovey-dovey and living the time of their lives and do. So there's that. But then as it relates to kids, I am routinely talking about flipping my lid to kids. They love it. They love it. They have no idea. They have no idea that other people flip their lids to the extent that they do. And I tell stories, general stories about other people flipping their lids. I think just like, just naming the thing, like this thing that's happening to you, it's a thing. Because I remember as a kid, I remember being like a young kid being like, I am the only one who is like having this situation happen. Because, you go to school and, if people are dysregulated, they are, at school, like outwardly flipping their lid, but a lot more people are flipping their lid in that freeze, it's an internal dysregulation that sometimes you can't see, and you think you're the only one, and then it drives masking behaviors and internalized deficiency and all the things. So just letting people know about that. And I talk about like books and movies where people are flipping their lid and trying to normalize flipping your lid that way has been helpful to my 5-year-old.
One of the things that Mel does that has been a constant since both of our two they're about the same age, and they've been friends for, what do we have now, 2.5, 3 years. And since the beginning of the friendship, it's this conversation of there's a million different brains in the world. There's no one right way to do anything. And so absolutely, like, this is play, and this is friendship, and this is together, and this is connection, and naming it as diversity of experience and diversity of action, and then enjoying the joy of it for the kids. Like, really, like, the amount of joy that Mel brings to a play date, that like just completely solidifies for the brains, like, this is happy. This is that bubbly, giggly, sparkly, effervescent feeling inside my chest. And that is palpable when there's a facilitator of that space. And so absolutely, like, social norms get completely thrown out the window and are not allowed because there's a million different ways to exist.
Thank you.
But to Cheryl's point, I think from a shame standpoint, Hannah, I don't think that it was always that way. I think, like, in regular life, when things were new and you're like being a parent, you're like trying to make friends, shame limits even the opportunity for connection too. I remember, the first time I met your family at a playground, for example, I had the shame of like, I'm the only parent in the universe that's like having a hard time meeting the people, because who knows what's going to happen, flipping your lid could happen at any time. Like, so it needs to be, it's energetic and implicit, but it's also explicit. Like, hey, this is a place where you can come and flip your lid. This is a place where we expect lid flipping because it happens all day. Like, I try to do that much more than I ever thought possible, because, otherwise you don't know. Like, I have so many families in my practice who, even before COVID, it was not comfortable to like go to a community event and not go to this place or that place because the norms are not stated. It's implied in the interaction of brain rules and world rules there. But when you say, hey, I'm expecting lid flipping, I don't know, I think that goes a long way in shame reduction.
I do too. And I think that what the shame piece that fits in, like, so for me, getting out of shame, and it's individual. For me, getting out of shame is playfulness. So my internal need and reflection when I start to feel shame is I need to find some place to be playful, and that's my temperament. That's my that's so what I find in what Mel would bring to these play dates with Isaac was that there was a playful sense of getting getting out of stereotypical norms. It is not the societal norm by any means, and the implicit biases and the implicit brain rules that give us shame are very, very much prolific. I agree. But I think building the capacity from that young age of self-actualization and joy takes the facilitation of us for the kids. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I'm noticing I'm stepping up more than if other people have other thoughts, I have more that I would love to tap your brains about, but I also want to leave space for others.
Yeah, and others can feel free to type into the chat box too. And I know it's 5:10, but I'm happy to stick around if Cheryl, if you have if go for it.
Okay. So my brain went to two places, and I think I'm forgetting one example. So I'm going to tell you the two, I think. Examples of how to be playful when you're flipping your lid. Like, so what's allowed flipping lid? So if we could model that as parents, and if you could kind of, I don't know, maybe it's already out there, a series. This is how you flip a lid to model how to flip a lid.
That's awesome. We can totally do that.
Yeah.
And the other thing is we can try to catch some stuff on videotape too. I can start to catch some stuff on videotape too of myself flipping my lid. That'd be interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Learning.
Yeah, because it's, when Hannah talks about playfulness, I mean, we all have different love languages. We all have different, go-to, motor plans, habits of regulation.
Yep.
I don't go to playfulness. I don't identify as a playful person, which is very funny because whenever I hear someone describe me that way, I just don't identify that way. And that's amazing. You'd have to operate the TikTok channel for me, Megan, because it's too much technology. It's too much novel motor planning. But I go to disclosure. I feel like I've gone to disclosure since young childhood, over disclosing, so something will be happening. I'll be like, I feel terrible. I have to tell you about it. And that's my strategy. And that really works for my child too. And modeling that has been really helpful because now, Zachary's at a place where, Zachary can do that if we catch it kind of early enough. And normalizing it through media for that purpose too is helpful. Elsa flips her lid. I don't know why people don't talk about this. And yes, I'm going to say this on recording. Elsa is a character with sensory processing differences, different culture of social communication, who's told to cover up her hands. Okay, how come we don't name the thing? So we've been talking about Elsa and Elsa's brain, for years now. And it's Elsa flipped her lid. It's fine. Or we watched The Snow Queen yesterday, where literally the process of non-inclusion and trauma and dysregulation and all the things is named in a cartoon. What? It makes sense that, Frozen's based on that. But anyway, that. Just for little kids, it's not because there's some brains that really need to see it and need to make it so indirect. and in the context of a character, someone outside of themselves, then you don't feel so alone. Christy Forbes has a lot of great resources about the PDA profile of autism, and she has a YouTube video about villains and why some children really identify with the villain characters, because you know, in a lot of mainstream media, you know, the characters are like happy and cheerful and like do, but like, you know, the angst, like the real deal, you know, it's the villains that model that and resonate. But it's like, well, you know, everybody, yes, right, yeah. My son says he's Voldemort, says in the chat. Yeah, because but what I've been trying to do is facilitate kids knowing that about each other. Like, I mean, we've been talking about lid flipping with Isaac. I mean, like you know, the two of them, they were toddlers. We were talking about lid flipping together. They know each other flips their lid. They know we flip our lids. And it's just so normal.
Yeah.
Because it is.
Yeah. So that sort of, I don't know if it leads to the next one. And by the way, that's all brilliant and wonderful. And I am so glad. Thank you so much, Mel, for having posted this in the Tilt community.
Cool. Yeah.
For getting it to me. The other question is about preventing, I mean, the kids, and maybe what you've already talked about does it preemptively without my saying it, or you're saying it, but it's okay to not be good at certain things. It's okay to be just fine at what I do and love what I do and not be particularly quote unquote good at other things. And I don't know that that's directly related, but I'd love to hear your thoughts.
It's everything. It is directly related. So basically that's the whole concept of, we all have different brains that learn, think, and communicate differently. We all have things that come easily to us. We all have things that we have to work harder at. And I think it's very helpful whenever possible to be talking about the things that our brains have to work harder at, you know, to each other, to kids, and just normalizing that. And so, you know, even today, for example, I was talking with an artist and, you know, an adult artist, and just, you know, it's my habitual motor plan, my social motor plan, to be like, you know, I love that your brain can do that. My brain has a hard time with that. But there's lots of things my brain does pretty well.
Yeah, that's beautiful. That's great. I'm trying to read Jessica's thing in the.
One of the things that attached to that has been super helpful in framing a lot of life for me is also that the imposter syndrome and the say it, Mel, the word finding problems here, asynchronous development.
But asynchronous development. Yeah, the thing about asynchronous development is that many brains do not develop skills in a particular linear order the way that we're trained that it does. That's not how all brains develop. You know, when you see a person who can build a tower of 20 blocks, the default is to assume that they can build the tower 4 blocks. But for the dopamine bound brain, that's not true. The dopamine bound brain can do what gives you dopamine. And so what ends up happening is that, you know, so for example, you know, I'm a physician, but like, I can't open the door sometimes with a key. I like really can't do it. And I feel really bad about myself when I can't do it. Well, and the way I'll explain it to a kid is, you know, I have the kind of brain that's so busy noticing all this stuff and taking all this information. You know, I have different priorities than like coordinating the hand-eye thing. Like, it's just not a thing I do.
Thank you.
Mel, I want to respond to Jessica. So Jessica has a question in the box about co-regulating her son and not flipping my lid constantly when I'm making a request, and he loses his temper and ignores me. But how can parents try to co-regulate when a child is hyped up and running away? For example, it comes around playground after school, and my 6-year-old is either too rough or taking certain play behaviors too far. And when I go and speak to him, he bolts. the light is rich. You are not alone. This was 45 minutes ago in the street in front of my house. A brand new play date with a new neighbor on a big, huge snowbank outside. A snowball fight started, which was not a safe idea, and it ended in complete frustration and tears and dysregulation. And I ran out of the house and sat in a snowbank in my sweatpants, trying to co-regulate and get my nervous system back inside. So I think the important thing you're not alone. This happens all the time. It happens weekly. It happens to all of us. And how you get there is going back and forth with the practice. And like Mel was saying, labeling it and sitting with it, and it's there. Like sit in the mess with the kid and know that it's a tide that passes, feeling pushed to try to fix things completely makes sense. One of the things that the Ross Green, the CPS, the collaborative proactive solutions piece that can become a tool is when we are regulated, being able to have that empathetic response to, hey bud, it has been super hard to leave the playground, or draw pictures. I get out my scrap paper and I draw stick figure pictures, and I'll draw the snowbank, and I'll draw this is Isaac on the snowbank, this is a snowball flying, this is Papa on the snowbank, and this is the neighbor on the snowbank. And then he'll start to talk as I'm drawing. Oh yeah, that's what happened. That was the snowball falling. That was the anger. I'll draw the flip the lid. Like, here's the brain, and here's firecrackers coming out of the brain. Oh yeah, that was me upset. Again, yeah, minimizing auditory input. We can do the whole CPS process in line drawings and figure drawings. I am not an artist. It is not one place my brain is strong at, but I will go through that, because then I'm not talking. When I talk about it, my value judgment is obvious in my voice. If I'm not completely objective, that energetic response to the value judgment, the shame that I feel about the situation, communicates directly to his nervous system, and then it is a re-trauma and a re-explosion. Even with declarative language, sometimes, Mel, because I'm having a value judgment internally about it, my limbic is saying something valued. Even in declarative language, it still is communicated energetically.
Right. The energetic thing, if you have the thought like that, I don't want this to be happening right now, that nervous system is going to feel that. And so I'm imagining this scene at the playground, right? And so there's so many thoughts, like, I don't want social judgment. I don't want, and some of it's catastrophic and some of it's like real. Some of it's, most of it's real, because people are judgy and people are, people do the things. But in that moment, like, okay, the goal is connection. The goal is connection. I literally, we were talking about the safety cues. I literally, the thought, the goal is connection. And I say it to myself, and I say it to myself over and over and over again. So it drowns out all my other thoughts. That's literally how I do it. And I don't say anything. I just sit. Sometimes that works. Sometimes it doesn't, but the goal is connection. The goal is connection. The goal is connection. And as long as you don't talk and you don't think in that moment for like 2 seconds, I think things might settle, as long as there's not something else going on that is driving the thing. Then I think about foot on the gas versus foot on the brake. And so stop throwing the snowballs. I think that's not going to work. That's a brake thing. So if it's snowing, if like the rough behaviors, like throwing a snowball, it'd be like, hey, let's throw it this way. Or you start throwing it this way. So it's a nonverbal directions, because if the foot's on the gas, let the foot be on the gas. Just have it be not at somebody's head.
So what Mel just said there, like for me, and again, it's an exploration of our own nervous systems as co-regulators. So for me, it is I get on the ground. I've said this a couple of times. That's my nervous system needs. So I get on the ground. My kiddo's nervous system is his response is fight. So he will come at me with the fight. If his nervous system was to flee, was to be a bolter, to be a runner, then it would be practice with me to be able to run with. And that would be, okay, we're running. And yes, I'm going to keep you safe and we're not running into the road, but this is what our nervous system needs right now. So I'm running right next to you and we're running. Yeah, exactly. I don't like this and it's happening. Will you turn the light on for me? It got dark in here.
What's light?
On the wall over there. Do you see it? Thank you. Oh, that helps. Yeah. So
Yeah. Hey, can I ask Isaac a question now that my phone works?
yeah.
Isaac, we're talking about lid flipping. And I was saying that everyone flips their lid. Everyone, all the people. You think it's true?
Yes.
I agree with you. I agree with you.
Everybody flips their lid once.
Yeah, or twice, or like a million times.
400 million
400
times.
million times. Yep. Flipping their lid. And some people, did you know that some people think that they're the only ones who flip their lid?
Did you know that?
No.
Oh.
Some people think they're the only ones, and then they feel bad about themselves because they think they're the only ones. So I'm like, no, everybody flips their lid.
And do they think that you're telling the truth?
Well, I think eventually they think I'm telling the truth. But there's some kids, for example, when they flip their lid and they like break windows and doors and they throw things and they make there's like chaos and stuff. They don't know. They think it's like their upstairs brain that made that choice. But it's not. It's downstairs brain. Downstairs brain, didn't feel safe. Flip your lid. I don't know what I should tell the kids. There's a lot of kids who they think that just because they flip their lids, they think they're mean or evil or something, but it's not true.
Why did you raise your hand?
It's the cursor. It's just turned into a
Yeah. What do you think I should tell the kids? The kids that think that there's, that they're mean or evil or something just because they flip their lids.
Maybe tell them not all kids can flip their lid, but maybe not all kids flip their lid.
Maybe not all kids flip their lid on the outside, but maybe they flip their lid on the inside, and that's maybe why they don't see it all the time, like at school and stuff.
Yeah.
Whoa. I love that your brain came up with that idea.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, you actually asked that's what I meant. So you kind of.
Well, we came up with the idea together. We co-ideated, that's called. Co-ideation is my favorite thing.
Can I ask you for a follow-up question? We're like, there's an echo down here too.
Oh.
All right. Yeah.
All right. So thank you all for coming to Brain Club, and we hope to see you again next Sunday.
Thank you all.
Bye.
And I think you have to turn the recording off because you're the host today. I'm just
Amazing.
your guest. Okay.
Amazing. I am so thrilled to have met you. Thank you. You both.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you. Bye.
Have a good
Bye.
evening.